Welcome to A New Perspective with Mike Sherbino and Julie Stautland. It's a funny thing, reality TV, because it really has nothing to do with reality and everything to do with escaping reality. For one former Bachelor, Ben Higgins, who went through the typical drama seen on all of these shows, he says it created a story that will last a lifetime, and it was something he had no preparation for or could have dreamed of happening, but is overall happy that he was on the show. Well, it made him an instant reality star and gave him many things in his young life. When the season ended, his life began, and a new venture in coffee, starting Generous Coffee that sells ethically sourced coffee beans, helping millions of people around the world.
Well, welcome to The Perspective. I'm Julie Stautland and Mike's Way. So we have Mitch co-hosting with us this morning. Welcome, Mitch.
Julie, I'm glad to be here. And you know what? Today is the first day I've ever worn a jean shirt, so I'm excited.
Wow,
Yeah.
something brand new, a fresh beginning. And
It's a new day.
It's a new day. Hey, well, it's a new day here, and we're so happy to have Ben Higgins with us and to hear his journey and where he's come from and what he's doing right now. So let's bring Ben right into the show right away and start our interview. Thank you for coming and being with us this morning, Ben.
Hey, everybody. Good morning. Thanks for having me.
So, Ben, you're a TV personality, you're a public speaker and influencer. You're also involved with an entrepreneur project that I'm sure you're going to talk about. So we're not here to talk about you being on The Bachelor, but we'd be remiss if we didn't at least mention it. Just tell me, how did that impact your life?
Well, thanks for the intro. I think those things are all really great. But yes, it all kind of came from a season of life where I was on television. And so to be The Bachelor, it's a weird deal. You have no prep. I had a full-time job. I got the phone call. I went on the show. I was actually on The Bachelorette, which is the show leading up to the Bachelor season. First, they then asked me to be the Bachelor. And you got to the best way I can explain it, Mitch, is you're somebody that's sitting in a cubicle working, typing user manuals for a living. Mm-hmm. And 2 weeks later, you're dating 30 people at one time on national television. So it definitely changes life a bit.
So is being a reality star harmful or wonderful or both? How did it hit you?
I think it's that's probably unique to each individual person. For me, it's been awesome. There hasn't been too many difficulties or too many things in my life from the show that have caused me damage. Some people have some really hard seasons going on TV, and maybe they don't behave the way they wanted to, or maybe their emotions get the best of them, and it's not portrayed well on television. For me, I felt like, other than a really hard breakup that then had to be talked about and asked about every conversation I had for the next year of my life, the show's been really great for me. And it's really kind of given me a whole new platform to then kind of work from as I try to build now towards the future.
So, Ben, it's easy for some people to forget that folks who participate in reality TV, we can kind of push that aside, but they're actually real people, and we've got you sitting here with us today. So just tell us a bit about yourself and specifically your faith journey. Where did your faith journey begin?
Yeah, great. Well, definitely are real people. That is a true thing. There's a few, now that I'm out of contract, I can share a lot about the behind the scenes of the show. And one of the things is it's just a bunch of normal people trying to figure out how to do this thing well. And most of the time people don't do it well. And that's kind of my faith journey, I guess, is trying to figure out how to find truth in life, how to pursue that truth well, how to listen to the voice of God, and how to be a part of something that helps and doesn't hurt. And so for me as a kid, I just had a lot of questions, and I still have a lot of questions. And my family allowed me to ask those questions. The more questions I asked, and the more I dug into life, the more I found that I had to believe. There was no other way that I could look at this world and make sense of it without some type of God that loved, or some type of force that loved. I found that if I loved my neighbor and I loved myself and cared for the outsider, that life made more sense. And all of that started to point more towards Jesus. And so, yeah, I guess at 33 years old now, I've found the truth in Jesus, and I've now tried to do the best I can and use my life to be a part of something that helps and doesn't hurt.
I think that's a really good point you made, as well, as the fact that your parents allowed you to ask the questions. What an important thing to do, not to just assume or push, but to allow you to ask hard questions and to have doubts and to walk through and find those answers. That's a really good word of encouragement for other people, our viewers out there. But I want to ask you, Ben, why do you think young people enjoy this show so much? And what is it on a very deep level that attracts them to it?
It's a great question. When I was on the show, 10 million people tuned in. I think on this week's episode of the show, they had about 2.7 million people tune in. So I do think it's changing. I don't know if you can say it's less popular. It's just people are viewing it differently, streaming it differently. I think people connect with it because it gives them a few elements that young people really enjoy. One, fashion. They get to see the newest trends. That's probably the least important of reasons why. The other is the drama. It's why every time the host says this will be the most dramatic season ever, people want to see the drama. They want to feel less alone by watching other people make fools of themselves, because quite frankly, we all know ourselves really well. And we know that ourselves make a fool of ourselves every day of our life. And so now we get to watch people on television do it, relate with them. And the final thing is, I think they like the love story. I think they do. I think people in general want to see something to root for. Now, granted, they want to see something to root for as long as it also includes the drama along the way. And this show has that.
Well, Ben, let me ask you this. And before I go on, you said people naturally make fools out of themselves. And I mentioned in the intro, first time wearing a jean shirt today. And I hope with the fact that it's not today for me. That's good. But why don't you do this? Tell us about the love you found after The Bachelor.
Yeah, so I met my wife now, Jessica. 4 years ago, I think. 4 years.
You better know.
I better know that. Yeah. I messaged her on Instagram, and we started to talk kind of through social media. She was just living at home with her family, just had kind of gotten out of college, trying to figure out life. I saw her picture online, and I said, I want to message this girl. I kind of like what she stands for. And we dated up until November of last year, which is when we got married. I guess we're still dating today, but our title changed a little bit legally in November. And so I met her when I was in Nashville for a fundraiser. I was on Instagram kind of scrolling around, saw her picture. My buddies had encouraged me post-Bachelor to start messaging people on Instagram, that it was a better way to date, that because I wasn't dating at the time. And so she was kind of my first go at it. And I said, hey, let me give this a shot. And well, she responded. And now 4 years later, we're married, very happily married, figuring life out, just got a puppy. So we're making a life together.
Well, congratulations on that. And I love the fact that you say that you're continuing to date your wife. It's just the titles have changed. I think that's so important for everyone to remember, that it doesn't matter. You're dating for the rest of your life. But listen, we have to take a quick break, and we're going to be right back with more with Ben Higgins.
Generous International started with the idea that we could be a benefit and a support system to nonprofits and social causes out there fighting human-facing injustice around the world. For years, my buddies and I had been working with an organization called Humanity and Hope United. Humanity and Hope United is a sustainable change organization that focuses on alleviating human injustice in communities in Honduras.
All right, well, welcome back to The Perspective. We're talking with Ben Higgins today. And I have to ask you, you've now started a coffee company, Generous Coffee, where 100% of the proceeds go to organizations that are doing good work. Tell us how that all began. That sounds so exciting, and it makes me want to have a coffee right now.
Well, you should. It's the morning time. We started this because when I was younger, I was 15 years old. In short, I'm going to tell this as fast as I can. There's so much more to this story, but my family took my buddies and I on a trip to Central America.
Oh.
And on this trip, we saw poverty for the first time. Unfortunately, the trip we went on was more of a disaster relief trip, which is incredible given the right circumstances. Disaster relief is vitally important. But on this trip, as kids, we kind of felt like we were handing out boxes of food, then leaving, and no relationship was being built. No long-standing sustainable change was being done. So my buddies and I got back, and we weren't okay with this, and we started a nonprofit called Humane and Hope United. And the idea of Humane and Hope United is that we would ask the people in these communities that we work alongside, what do you need? What do you want? What do you dream of? And then how can we help? So they would be leading us and guiding us, and we would then hopefully input some empowerment into these communities so that they could go and sustain for perpetuity. Well, when I was on the show, Humane and Hope United was already built. It was already functioning. We were doing really well. And I was starting to have a crisis of ego. My ego is pretty big. And it is, yeah. And I went on the show and I saw myself on magazines. And then I saw myself after a breakup from the show. And I was asking myself the question, what was all this for? What's the purpose of all of this? And my buddy, who was a part of the nonprofit with me, said, what if this whole thing was meant to be about something bigger than yourself? What can you do bigger than yourself? And I knew that any nonprofit needs funding. And I also knew that I had a new platform that we could share from. And so we started a for-profit company. We call ourselves For Purpose. It's a coffee company mostly. We sell coffee online, and then in our bylaws and in our operating agreement, we have to donate 100% of the profits, which is about 10 to 12% of the revenue, to nonprofits that are human focused, effective and efficient with their funds, and then sustainable in their mission. And we've been doing that now since 2017. I've been helping lead that. We hired a new CEO a year and a half ago, which is a big help to me because I no longer have to do spreadsheets every day.
Yes.
It's a new day.
And I get to talk for a living. But yeah, we sell coffee online at generouscoffee.com, specialty grade coffee. Then we donate the profits back.
So Ben, let me ask you this. You said for purpose, not for profit. And I'm wondering if that's a phrase that should be applied really to my life and to everybody's life and every sort of adventure. But can you tell us more about that phrase, for purpose, not for profit?
Well, everybody, when they hear, hey, you donate your profits, you're a nonprofit. And I said, it's not true. There's some reasons why we're not. We want to take outside investment. We want to find some of the most generous people in the world to help invest into Generous Coffee, to help grow this company so that we can continue to sell coffee, continue to sell apparel, continue to sell mugs, and do it at a high level and a high scale. We want to build this company so that the bigger we are, the more that's being given back. The difference, though, is instead of me retiring early and flying in my nice jet up to Canada to see you this morning, I'm now sitting in my office because the owners of this business really don't benefit from it. We have loans out that the company get paid back on, but everything else is being donated. So we're not a for-profit because profit is not what we're about. We're about our mission, which is to help people around the world, both domestically and internationally. And we're not a nonprofit because we are about building our company. So we're for purpose. Our mission and what we do, and our shareholders, our stakeholders in the company, what they care about is how much impact is Generous making, not as much of how much money, but how much impact. And so we have to hold ourselves responsible to those shareholders and share the stories that are truthful with them about what we're doing with our company and with our riches.
I was just wondering, you talked about the organizations that you pass on the profits to. What are your checks and balances to help you know that they are legitimate and that the money's getting there? Because I've worked with the third world so many times, and I know that is a really challenging process many times. How do you work through this?
Well, Julie, it's a great question. And it's one that I hope in 50 years we don't have to ask as much. It is complex. It is always complex. I think you have to have the perspective when you're in work around the world, especially in developing countries, to know that sometimes you're going to make mistakes. Sometimes you're going to pick a partner and it doesn't work out well and you have to be willing to move on. However, for us, we do visit. So we build a relationship. We check in. They have to share their stories of impact and where the funds are going. Now, here's the truth, though, Julie and Mitch. I'm okay if they use the funds that we give to them to pay the salaries of their employees or for the pens and the paper that they need to have so that they can sit in meetings and write on. I know that stuff's really hard to fund for. And hey, we can fund the boring stuff. I'm cool with that because that helps continue towards the mission. They just have to continue to show us what they're doing. For example, Humane and Hope United. I've had a long relationship with them. I'm on the board of Humane and Hope United. Also an organization it's a global organization based out of Washington, D.C. called Project Hope. Okay. Project Hope allowed me to sit on the board of Project Hope, so I get to see what they're doing and how they're doing it. As a result, we have a really close relationship, and it would be really difficult to not use the funds well.
So Ben, talk to us about this. You know, we were talking about your own faith journey earlier, and I'm wondering what role does your faith play in your work with Generous? And I see, you know, there's the obvious connection there. Well, Jesus calls us to give money. I see that, but I'm wondering, is there a deeper way or a more frequent way that you're able to incorporate your faith with Generous?
I mean, Mitch, I think to answer that fairly, every day I'm trying my best to live out my faith as well as I can. I say it this way often: if you took Jesus away from me, you've taken everything. Like everything I've ever done changes. And I mean that. You know, I would love to come off the show and have written a tell-all book and found a way to make so much money that I am laying on a beach right now. But instead, I don't believe that's what God called me to. I don't think it's the purpose to which I'm on this earth for. And so, but yeah, if you took God away from me within the equation, then yes, I'm on the beach right now. I'm not worried about anything. And then also, I think there is the level of when you build relationship with people, when you respect people, when you love people well, when you meet people where they're at in their struggles and in their sorrows and their pains, but also in their joys, I think God comes through. I think one thing in my life, I'm not going to say that I believe everybody thinks is missing, because this is just a personal thing for me. But in my life, the one thing I missed for years was that there is an active spirit of God amongst us, moving and breathing and caring for all of us. And I want to trust that wherever I'm at, that spirit is moving, and I just got to be a part of something that, again, is helping and not hurting and not getting in the way of something really good happening. And so that's how my faith lives out. It's also something now, because of my story, I'm not at all embarrassed of. Now I get to talk about it on national television. I get to talk about my faith here with you all on The Perspective, on Good Morning America, and the Today Show. I get to share, hey, why do you do this? It's, well, because I believe in Jesus.
Ben, I love your authenticity, and thank you so much for coming on the show today. It's so wonderful to see how God is working in your life, how he is working in your life, and like you're saying, basically where we're planted, we can really bloom and make an impact, and you're doing it. So thank you so much for joining us today in The Perspective.
Thanks, Ben.
Thank you all.
All right, we'll be right back.
So we came up with an idea that we could start a for-profit company, sell products of the highest quality, coffee being our main one, and then donate the profits to nonprofits and social causes that are fighting for humans around the world. We would call this business not a for-profit business, but a for-purpose business, because our purpose is greater than our profit. 2.5 years later, we now sit in a place that Generous has 200 ambassadors around the U.S. that are fighting for generosity and kindness and love in whatever neighborhoods they're living in.
Wow, what an interesting guy, Mitch. I really appreciated how open he was and how real he was and how passionate he was with what he's doing. What were some of your thoughts?
Yeah, you know what I love? Well, talk about what he's doing. We're just watching the video a minute ago, and watching them pour the water in the cup. That's making me want a cup of coffee.
I want a cup of coffee, too.
Yeah, but you know, on a serious note, when I asked him, okay, how do you incorporate your faith into what you do? And I love what he shared. He said, you know what? It's not any one particular thing. It's the way I talk to people. It's the way I handle the business. It's the way I represent myself. And I just love that you don't need to be a reality TV star or own your own company. Just applying that to your own life. Where am I? and how can I represent Christ in my own situation? I love that.
I know, and immediately I thought of, it's not a religion, it's a relationship, and that's what he's showing, that I'm living it out wherever he's planted. He is just being a light and doing what he feels he's called to do. And I thought it was very interesting too. He's like, really felt like the Bachelor gave him that platform to have a voice, and he's using it to impact people's lives. And it's so interesting to see that with this platform, that he is finding ways to integrate into the third world. That took him back to experiences he had when he did that trip as a child, and he had to help with disaster relief, but he wanted to make an even bigger impact, a lasting impact, help with infrastructure, with long-term business, and how that really is changing people's lives as a whole.
Yeah, you know what's cool about that is you think about, when I think about, let's say, Christian personalities in the media, you know, the last person I'd expect, and I'm not disrespecting him, I'm giving credit to God, saying, man, I'd never expect a person running a not-for-profit for purpose to come from a reality TV show, right? But he says, you know what, God brought me through these different things, and God is letting me use it to give him glory. I just think that's so neat that God can use any sort of situation that we wouldn't expect. God can use that to bring people to give him glory.
And to see that he's got a wonderful wife, that he is still dating, and what a good word there that we have. Titles change, but still dating. That's a very, very passionate, committed relationship, and it's really wonderful to see that in everything that he's doing, it's a relationship. And like I shared, it's not religion, it's a relationship, and that's what we want to share with you today. And that life is difficult, life is challenging, but Jesus is offering a relationship where we can transform our lives by giving him all the things that we're challenged with, that he is someone who's listening, he's here, and he can bring healing that no one else can. So on that, stay with us. We're going to be right back with Vian King. She's got the word.
Welcome back. Filling in for us today as our regularly scheduled guest, Nolan Benny, is home sick with COVID, is the amazing Vian King. We're talking about when church hurts, it's a deep cut, and many people have been through it. Many people have been healed through it. Vian King is back on the program. Thank you so much for joining us today.
So glad to be back. Thanks for having me.
So Vian, I want to start off with, tell us in 30 seconds or less, what is your story with the church?
Well, let me just start at when I had the biggest crisis happen in my life, when I was laying on a hospital bed, fighting for my life, just having a life-altering virus literally take my independence. That moment where I was like, I had loved and served God my whole life. And within that first week, I had people leaning over my bedside asking me if there were people that I needed to forgive, or maybe if there was sin in my life, wondering, and I'm thinking about these things. I'm like, you know, I just graduated Bible college, and I loved and served God my whole life. And here I am trying to think, maybe they're right. Maybe there is sin in my life. Maybe, is there 5 people that I need to forgive? These were literally real conversations that I had. And in that process of trying to rationalize, maybe there was something wrong with me. Maybe God did this to me because I'm a bad person, and I'm not, I'm not on the right track. And so God did this to me to get my attention. And so that set me on a path that made me doubt God, my relationship with him. And it started making me kind of resent God and blamed him for the situation I was in. And so I want to qualify it, first of all, by saying that I allowed those lies to sit in my heart because I truly didn't know who I was in Christ. And so, yeah, I was hurt by the church. But I want to tell you that this crisis that I experienced in my life allowed me to truly understand Christ for myself. Why did I believe those lies? Because I didn't truly know what God thought about me. And I allowed man's opinion and their views to taint my view of God. And so that was the bad scenario, right? But the good example, or the good stories of the church, are when you can truly let man be man and God be God. So when you look for those moments where you put your expectations in God over man, because we are all fallible, we're all going to fall, we're all going to have those things where men let us down. But when we can finally start being who Christ has called us to be, a loving, safe place, then that is when you start to see the beauty of people seeing you and loving you exactly where you are without all of the religion and rules. And that's the beauty of who the church is truly called to be.
That is wonderfully said. It's so true. And I'm sorry that you went through that pain of, in the moment when you really needed people to love on you, that they were trying to help you in a way that was not helpful. But that, I think, is the point, is that no matter what, we're Christians and we do make mistakes, and it's a learning journey that we're on, and we are going to improve and grow. But the world doesn't see that that's what's happening. Many times they just see how we're acting at that moment, at that stage. So I want to move on from here and go and ask you, what's your perspective on what this generation says is needed in the church in order to change? What's your thoughts on this?
Simply put, we need to be safe places.
Yeah.
Bottom line, we need to love without judgment. And if we can learn that, man, we've learned a lot.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Absolutely right on the money. Wow. How do you keep your faith in the midst of all that you've been through? I think that's a really important question. How do you engage? How do you connect? How do you trust again? Very short. We only have like 20 seconds.
I think the big thing is keeping my expectations and my motives always in check, that I trust in the Lord, not man, with all of my heart. And I lean on his understanding, not my own and not man's, because once I put my trust truly in God with all of my heart, he will direct me. And it is truly about connecting and engaging and trusting God in a way that I never had before.
Wow. Thank you so much for that. That is a great way to end this interview. Thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate your heart and the journey that you've been on and the voice that you are to so many.
Do you ever feel that life gives you more than you can handle? Maybe you think, if God truly loved me, he wouldn't allow me to suffer like this. You know I'm not the only one who's yelled at God and said, how could you let this happen? Or, don't you care about me? You know, it was in my pain and periods of questioning that I learned to trust God more than ever before. Only then was I able to believe God when he said, Vianne, I'm able to do way more than you can ever hope or imagine if you just trust me. I've learned that if you're never tested, you'll never know what you're capable of. And if you don't learn to trust God, you'll never know what he's capable of. Are you willing to trust God with your pain and overwhelming circumstances today? I invite you to join me in an adventure to discover God's intended more for your life.